Hello, everyone, and welcome to another powerful conversation with another powerful woman. I'm delighted to be joined by Steph McCann today. She's a great friend of mine and also a fellow coach. Before we start, I wanted to say Happy International Women's Day. It's a really special day where we get to celebrate how amazing we are. And I'm really, really passionate about us supporting as many women as possible really reach their best. Hence the name of my own company. So yes, I'm delighted to be joined by Steph. Very sad that Helen Moon couldn't make it today. And thank you to Steph for stepping in.
No problem.
I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Steph.
Thanks, Claire, and happy International Women's Day to you too. So yeah, we've known each other for about a year now, Claire, coming up to about a year. And I was sort of kind of just getting into the real meats and bones of coaching and, really sort of taking it more seriously. So I've been sort of coaching in different capacities, but I've kind of really focused on, through just talking to women, the need to help single professional women mid-40s, because it's such a pivotal point in life. We're at that kind of seesaw point. Maybe we find ourselves single for whatever reason. We are having to take care of family, parents, hold down a job, and just sometimes we have these conversations with our friends, but we might get thrown the whole, you should do this, you should try this, you must do that. And it kind of doesn't get people out of the gate, doesn't help them get past that. But yourself through the model of coaching that asking people things in a certain way, they can start to really drill down into, I can actually get more power back for myself here. So that's my motivator. So I had a long life career pretty much in aviation as cabin crew, and that lifestyle threw a spotlight on my health when I was in menopause. And perimenopause really kicked in for me sort of late 30s, early 40s, but you don't really understand what's going on in your body. So I am a bit of a self-care sat-nav for women to, to stand up for themselves and educate and inspire them. So that's my remit in the world today.
Yeah, and I think it's amazing. And as you say, I think it's that there are just, it can be almost overwhelming, all the things that we should be doing to look after ourselves more. And women people please all the time, put themselves last. Which areas do you find women like to address first when they, when you're speaking to them?
I would say that it's a bit of a balance of their appearance and their anxiety levels. They just start to become a bit more anxious about stuff because, if you think of the science that's going on in our bodies all the time, the processes, that physiological thing can create an emotional response. And we are so out of touch with that. We're not really educated to lead ourselves by our gut, and that we're still sort of trained to go off to the doctors. And then of course we're up against the diet industry, the monster of that, and all the nuances that come with it. And I'm not dissing the diet industry per se, because there's some great information out there, but we're taught to lose weight, and it's more about, why don't we harness a healthy body composition more than that? So it's getting people to really think about that. So that's the two things that really come up for me mainly, is people's anxiousness, anxiety, and weight.
Yeah. And what generally is the sort of advice that you give people that come to you with those issues?
I think my first thing is to take less away from them, give them less to think about, give them just one or two things to focus on. Actually, people think if they want to lose weight, they need to start taking things out straight away. And I will do the reverse of that. We'll get focused on the first meal of the day, not necessarily has to be breakfast. Not everyone's a breakfast person. And hydration, because hydration is so underrated. It's so important to have, that sort of, our brain being irrigated, our skin feeling clear, looking clear. So when people start to feel the benefits of that, even after a week, it gives them that little kickstart of motivation that there's something going on here. So they get the traction themselves. So then we start feeding in and layering up on things. But it's it's a whole umbrella coaching where it's really bespoke for them. They get to really sort of, it's like a kind of verbal dump, like, oh, I want to get everything out my system, and it's sort of emotionally, all of that sort of thing. And I let people speak because I think it's important for people to tell their story. And then and we go from there. So we really focus on some small changes, and then I can start to educate them better on the macronutrients, the micronutrients, and getting away from the scales. It's metrics that matter. It's energy, how you feel in your clothes, you know, how you're feeling in your relationships, and it's fostering all of that. So it's really exciting.
Yeah, and just going back to your comment on water, I think that's an interesting one, because water's been part of my journey, which sounds really crazy to say, but I never used to drink water. I hated it. I thought it was like, what's the point in drinking that? And I think that's how I grew up. And you would always add squash to water, which is more sugar and more calories. I mean, it horrifies me to think what on earth is in that. But I went to a workshop on gut health, and one of the recommendations I came away from that was drinking lukewarm water 3-4 times a day, a big glass. So and I just kind of built that into my routine now. So half an hour before every meal,
brilliant,
more water. And it's just such a really simple thing, but what a big difference it makes when your body has enough water in it.
Absolutely. And I think if you drink boiled water that's cooled down as well, it's kind of sterilized. You know, there is a lot of bacteria and stuff in everyday water, and goodness knows what comes through our pipes. So I think it's really good that you've taken that up. And I noticed, having traveled a lot, you know, if I had a lot of Chinese or Oriental customers on board, they would always ask for warm water.
Yeah.
So you start to see their habits, and it's brilliant. It's really good. And just that, and again, you touched on the point, you drink it half an hour before a meal, which is so important because it lets our own digestive enzymes do the heavy lifting and extract the nutrients. So really, really important. And making sure we've got the right amount of water. Make sure that we've got healthy levels of stomach acid as well, which is really important for seeing off viruses before it gets right into our gut, which is a passionate subject of mine, as you know.
Yeah. Tell us more about the gut. What top tip would you give somebody on gut health?
Listen to it and love it.
There's two levels to that, I guess, isn't there? There's one on the food, and there's the other on instinct and thoughts. And
it's such a fascinating area. You know, when we are developing as little fetus, you know, it's the same collection of cells, and then they split off. So that's why we feel it. We feel our emotion in this cavity here, don't we? We feel that emotion there, the lead weight of disappointment, grief, loss. But I think making sure that we are using the gut microbiome as it is our first line of defense. 70% of our immune system lives in there. So eating the right products to really sort of grow the bacteria, and then the right products to kind of feed them. It's a fascinating subject. So I think if you can eat the right foods, do all that, and trust your instinct. If something feels off, it probably is. Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting one, because sometimes we're so busy and caught up with what we're doing that even if there's a feeling in your gut that something's not right, we ignore it. And at some point our body says, hang on a minute, and we're ill because we just didn't listen to what what it was telling us to slow down and to give ourselves some rest and to give us a break. And I've noticed that there's quite a time lag between stress and it showing up in my body, which is just really interesting to notice if you start tracking those sorts of things. I was stressed at work, 3 weeks later, cold sore or cold or something.
Absolutely. And it's good when you sort of have that awareness, you can track it. And that's one of the questions. When I first meet a client, I'll do a deep dive with them, about 2.5 hours, and we'll talk about how they were born. Were you born naturally? Were you born by cesarean? Were you breastfed? You know, I want to get an idea of what their own natural defenses were like, and sort of adopted from their mother. But you know, when we go through the, you know, are you on medications? What supplements do you take? Do you take drugs? Do you, you know, and they can tell me everything in confidence, as you would expect. But it's really interesting when you start going through, did you have a big life event like a divorce? Did you have a really nasty house move that was just taking a piece out of you? And you can always track it back. The physical will always come out after the emotional, generally speaking.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
And it takes like ages for once your gut health has been ruined, shall we say, or depleted. It takes a very, very long time for it to grow back again, doesn't it?
It is. It's like, if you can imagine going to Kew Gardens and suddenly, you know, it's decimated through one thing or another. People have come and trashed it, you know, they've dug up the plants. You've then got to put all that back together again. But it can be doable. But really reducing the need to be doing all the time, you know, and balancing out the hormones, getting the cortisol levels right. All of these things can make a massive, massive difference. And there is so much we can do that is simple, that's easy. And it's just getting that information out there so that people can realize that there's, you know, they don't need to have this big overarching life makeover, because that's what puts people off. It's too much. They're comfortably uncomfortable doing what they're doing. But it's like, no, actually, let's just change one thing up at a time. For you to appreciate how that change feels. Because you change too much at once, people don't really appreciate what it was that they did to bring that change about.
And I think I really notice that if I explain to somebody now what my routine looks like, and all the self-care that I do, it looks like you know, how could you do all of that in one day and still work? But it's like, because it's been so gradual over time, it just slots in. And a great example of that is making my sourdough, which I've baked this morning, and I will be having some off after we've spoken. But and sourdough's like really, really good for your gut, one thing. But it doesn't take long to make. It really doesn't. But and just the process of making it is getting your hands in there, mixing it around, kneading it. It's a moment of mindfulness, of being. And of course, all your own, I don't know whether people really want to know, but all your own bacteria off your hands is going into the bread, and that and then is being shared with your family, or and it's all unique and all really good for you.
This is it. It's getting that microbe diversity is really important. We're living too clean these days. You know, kids are not really out in the streets roughing it so much, because we've got the tech world now, where that is the main, I would say, form of engagement and entertainment, whereas we probably all have a far more robust response to whatever we interact with. I mean, I know very few people that have, say, for example, nut allergies, my generation. It's the younger kids that are having it. And there has to be a correlation with that for sure. So not being too prissy about it, but doing something lovely and getting, you know, enjoying your motor skills and doing something wholesome, like baking bread. It's a lovely thing to do. We're living too fast and too furious, I think.
Yeah, no, exactly. What do you do to look after yourself and help you slow down?
I do a lot of breathing now. I really am enjoying all the science that's coming out with slowing our breath down, and actually how vast an impact the breath actually has in breathing the correct way on things to like correct, you know, mouth formation, brains, skull size. I mean, it's mind blowing. I won't go into that too much, but I just think it's really important to be constantly reminding yourself that there is no danger out there, and danger in the modern world is dealing with difficult colleagues, dealing with a challenging family member. You know, it's a difficult situation, but it's not life-threatening, but we still have the same response to it.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that we keep ourselves in check. So I'm quite sort of vigilant with doing some breath work. I like to read every day, which is something that I didn't do. That slows me down. I sometimes like a little power nap as well. I know you're quite fond of the odd power nap, because when you're using this muscle all the time, it can get tiring. And these days, Claire, my age, I'm nearly 52, strength training is a must. It's an absolute must for people growing that muscle mass, seeing off the lifestyle disease and disorders. So they're all kind of non-negotiables for me these days. And again, I don't spend a lot of time doing it, but the things that I build into my day, my week, and just stopping and getting off the merry-go-round, because it can be too much, especially when you have your own business. You can get pulled in 1,000 directions quite easily, and the overwhelm can take over. So I do try and swallow my own medicine.
Yeah, no, exactly. One of the ones that's interesting and that I do need to work more into my own rhythm is this resistance training. I do some, but I think I need to be, well, I want to be doing more, because I understand that as we get older, it's really good for us to be working our muscles. And I don't want to be, stuck in a chair, unable to do anything when I'm in my 80s. I want to be out walking and traveling the world and doing all these great things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think if there's more information coming out about it now, and neurological disorders like dementia is quite a passion close to my heart. My grandmother had it just in sort of her last few years of her life, but I'm actually working with a client now. And that work has spilled over to her husband, who had early onset dementia. And when I started speaking to her and understanding her challenges, I thought, this is not one person I'm going to be dealing with here. It's going to be two. Not one person in the medical profession asked this gentleman about his diet. Not one. Nothing.
Wow.
Yeah. And this is in the modern world of, it's sort of like this whole thing about nutrition and illness. The dots are still not joined up enough. We're getting better. But I took him down the path of having a microbiome test. And I engaged the help of a nutritional therapist to do that. So she could translate the blood test, translate the microbiome test, which was fascinating for me, looking at the state of his gut health and what he was severely lacking in the good bacteria and the pathogenic stuff that was really sort of making his symptoms worse. So he had a lot of gut distension. So we've managed to sort that out. We've managed to sort a lot of his toilet habits out. I mean, I don't think there's going to be a massive correction in his cognitive health, but I think we can really slow down the rate of decline, which is mega important too. And when you realize that there's that direct correlation with sugar and corrosion, it's massive. So it's fascinating.
Yeah. And when you just said then about no doctor asked about his nutritional health, and on this podcast I was listening to this morning, it was saying that no doctor asks a woman where they are in their menstrual cycle either, because the glucose levels in your sugar are different at different times of the month, because we need different things at different times of the month for our menstrual cycle, and that's not common practice. I mean, it's probably most doctors don't even know about it. So also really, really fascinating, because most medicine has been tested on men, because men have a simpler biological system than women do.
You're being very kind. I'm jesting, any chaps that are watching. But it's true. And it's that robotic habit that we have. If you're in the gym 4 days a week, when actually your cycle is asking for you to rest and nurture, you've got to ride the wave of the cycle. And this is the stuff that I wished that I'd known when I was younger. I suffered with painful periods for such a long time. And, I could have made life easier had I just had some more awareness around that now. And there's a plethora of resources that we can get information from now. And, it would be my overarching message is don't just trundle off to the doctor. and leave it at that. There's a whole ton of people out there in different capacities that can help in so many ways. And if you can harness your hormones for men and women, my God, you've got a good grip on your health. You really have.
Yeah, no, I think it's just so fascinating, and I think the advances that are being made in medical science are absolutely fascinating. Yeah, I just can't even imagine where we will be in, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years time, and what we will know about how we work.
Yeah, I think it needs to happen. I like the idea of some sort of diagnostic check twice a year where you can actually see for yourself and have the education and ability to translate certain things that would be a trigger for you to then go and get, medical help and say, look, this is happening. I'm not feeling great. I might have rheumatoid arthritis. That could be correlated to your kidney function, for example.
Yeah.
So but the interest got to be there. And it's like everything, Claire, a lot of us know what we should be doing, but we're not doing it. And that's why coaching is amazing, because you feel obliged to show up, yes, for yourself, but you want to prove to that person that, that you've invested in, with the time, the money, the education, that, I need to show up for myself, and I want to prove to you and me that I can do this. Because having someone else just be there for you and support you and give you a good nudge, and not well, it's okay, don't worry, you can do it next week. But, what happened? Why did it not happen this week? What's going on? How can I support you without, feeling like you're being, sort of given, the stick over the carrot, as it were. Really important. So I just think I would love for people to just open their eyes up to the world of coaching and betterment, or even some self-teach courses are great, but there's nothing like the gift of actually interacting with another human being that's absolutely got your back without judgment.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I think one of the challenges, and it's something that I've been discussing with a few people over the last couple of weeks, is that challenge of when you're caught up in the cycle of doing, and the doing is giving you, feels like it's giving you the results, that the fear of stopping and slowing down is associated with a fear of, well, if I don't do it, who's going to do it? How's it going to get done? Then this will happen, then that will happen. But actually recognizing that it's okay to slow down and to be and to look after yourself, once you give yourself that space, you can rule the world. I mean, that you have so much more energy and focus and clarity to be able to do so much more in less time. That you then even have more time to look after yourself. But it's just getting people to understand that there's a downside to constantly doing and not stopping, and at some point you will pay the price for it.
Absolutely. If you don't preempt it, your body will just get you on the ground somehow to make you stop. It's really interesting. I think a lot of it just stems down to permission. We're not very good at giving ourselves permission, but when someone else gives us the permission, it's like, well, that's okay then. But there's this guilt, there's this, I should be doing more, I should be moving more. That's just not how our ancestors behaved. It's just, that you went out, you did your activity through foraging for food, maybe running to get out of danger a bit, and then it was rest and sleep. And safety, and that's what we need now. That's what we need now. It's really interesting.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. I know that we're running short on time, but are there any other sort of interesting tidbits that you would like to give, particularly given that it's International Women's Day today?
I think that it would be really great for everyone, particularly female, to just start being more kind to themselves, and instead of berating, ask yourself a question. Ask yourself a question every day. How can I help myself? Because that opens up a whole world of possibility, infinitely. And sit down and just write it in a journal and make 5 minutes for yourself. If you're not making time for yourself now, start making 5 minutes 5 minutes is better than no minutes, because it has to start small. If you have been on the treadmill of doing, and you're, propping it all up, you can't let go of that quick. You have to start unloading it brick by brick. If you just drop it, that will have a big emotional response and physical. So ask yourself that question: what can I do for myself today? It's so important. And when we ask ourselves questions, we get answers. We don't shut down the, oh, well, you always do that. You're never going to, oh, here we are, it's Monday and you're still eating rubbish, and all the narratives that are embedded. And it's almost like, just find that override button. Find that override button and do something for yourself every day. Ask the question and give yourself 5 minutes, and you can work it out.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, Steph. Thank you. And if people want to get in touch with you, obviously we've got numberonehealthcoach.com on the screen. How else can they get in touch with you? Obviously through LinkedIn, because you'll be tagged in this.
I spend most of my time on LinkedIn these days. I still dip in and out of Facebook because I'm an Indian head massage therapist as well. So I do more of my promotion of that on there, and I work locally. And I'm sorry, the lighting's not better on this broadcast today, but I'm in the lovely Green People shop in Horsham, and I work there, work with them one day a week, which is fascinating because it's all health promoting and organic, so it's got something for everyone. So you can come and find me in Horsham, but if you want to drop me a DM on LinkedIn, I'm here as well.
And it's music to my ears about the LinkedIn, because I know there was some resistance around that a year ago when I met you. I have to say it.
I wanted to put LinkedIn in the linked bin.
Exactly. And look where we are now. I love it. I know. No, it's great. And thank you so much for this time today. And Helen, I hope you're okay. And yes, well, it's been lovely to do this on the special day that is International. We should make Women's Day every day. And it's not just about women. We should just make it Human Being Day every day, because then it doesn't have to be polarized, and we make the big effort. It's like any of these things. Just be good to yourself every day. We're all awesome.
We are. Big time.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, Steph. Really, I mean, as usual, I could talk to you for hours and hours, and I will, because I know we're seeing each other soon. Yes. So thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it, and I hope everybody else has too. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.